All right, guys, welcome back to the Clack Shack. And tonight, I've had a lot of people asking me questions about my charcuterie boards, cutting boards, bread boards, whatever you want to call them. It's basically a piece of wood with some type of a shape cut into it and a handle. A lot of times I'll use just some baling twine. This just twine that you can get at the hobby stores as a handle. Some folks like to upgrade that to a leather handle, leather strap, whatever. But this is typically what I put on them just for, to keep my costs down unless somebody asks me for something more. These things, the specialty woods, like this one is maple. This other one here is maple. And this one is cherry. The specialty woods, I sell those, generally speaking. These are from $25 to $30 a piece. That's my going rate. Now, when I'm selling these at my booth, I sell them as if I'm going to engrave them, because most of the time I do engrave them. And I have a lot of custom orders for them. And I've had 2 or 3 that I've done this week for people, for gifts, for different things. And I'll go ahead and let you in on this, guys. If you know any catering companies in your area that do large catering jobs, okay, those guys, they like to, if they get a big catering job, tonight, let me just bring you back to what I'm doing tonight. Tonight, I got to make one for a catering company. And I have been ordered by my better half that while I'm making the one for the catering company, I have to customize hers. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to show you the steps that I go through to make these things, as far as from start to stop. So if that's something you're interested in, guys, if maybe this is a market that you think you might want to tap into with your laser engraver and some basic woodworking skills, then stick around. I'm going to show you how I do it. Like I said, not a professional woodworker here, guys. I have figured out things that I can do to make money that help support my tool addiction, and I'm just going to pass those tricks on to you. So stick around for a minute and we'll go through that. All right, guys, of course, the one thing that you're going to need to start with is going to be some wood. And when it comes to selecting the wood for these things, I want to share something with you. If the intent of your boards, your charcuterie boards, cutting boards, whatever, if the intent of them is strictly for decorative purposes, wood really doesn't matter. You can use pine, you can use poplar, you can use pretty much any wood that you can get your hands on. Sweet gum. I mean, you could go and sawmill up a privy hedge if you wanted to. Now that stuff splits real bad, but you can pretty much use any kind of wood you want if it is strictly for decorative purposes. Now, if people are going to be eating off of it and cutting on it with cutting utensils, which I'm going to be honest with you, 99% of the ones that I make are decorative and decorative only. If they do put food on them, typically it's going to be in some type of little container or a wooden bowl or something like that. But I do not use any kind of chemicals or anything on the wood, just to be safe. Even on the ones, if I treat it with anything that you can't eat off of, then I'm going to laser engrave the back of it that says, not food safe, just to cover me. But any of the rest of them that I make, I'm going to make them out of oak. I'm going to make them out of hickory. You can use hickory. I'm going to use pecan. I'm going to use black walnut. Maple, spalted maple is really nice. People like it. They pay good money for it. Cherry is another good wood. Cherry wood is really hard. It's kind of hard to come by. Around here we have a wild cherry tree it's not the typical commercially available cherry tree, but it is a member of the cherry family. And that's where this cutting board here came from. And if you look at the wood grain on this thing, guys, it's got some really cool colors, very distinct, and this stuff is hard. Okay, you're not gonna easily scratch this even with a knife. So that's why folks like the cherry. Maple is another one. They make syrup out of maple trees. Maple's a hard wood. A lot of folks use maple for their cabinets and that type of thing. So that's a wood that's pretty commonly requested. One of my favorites, because the stuff is easy to work with, it's easy to sand, easy to come by, and it gets some interesting colors to it, is if you can find somebody that has a sawmill nearby, and you can get some poplar that has been allowed to weather and starts to get these black veins in it. This stuff makes some really interesting cutting boards. All right, and this is a piece of oak. This is actually just water oak. If you're from Alabama, you know how common water oak is. Now, I did let this stuff weather, and when it weathers, it gets those little tiny powder post beetle holes in it, and then once I dry the wood, it basically kills everything in the wood, so it gives it that rustic look, but without having to, you know, beat it with a hammer or punch holes in it with nails or any of that cheating stuff. This is actually legitimately weathered wood. So the way I go about it, guys, is I pick out, these are just scrap pieces of wood that I don't throw away. All right, I pick out my piece of wood. I can't use the 20 watt tonight, guys. I've got some ornaments burning, trying to get ready for it's next week's event. So I'm cutting ornaments over here, and I'm going to be making charcuterie boards. I've got probably 15 or 20 left from my last show, because I built a pile of them, and I've only sold 5 or 6 since the end of the last show. But my wife got into my stash, and she's put a hurting on me. Apparently I didn't know it, but I have been inadvertently making Christmas presents for some of her friends, and she's sending them back out here to get them engraved. But anyway, I've got one to engrave for my wife. I've got another one I've got to do for a catering company that we'll be doing, and I'm going to show you start to stop how to engrave one. But before we get started making one, to kind of be a good steward of our time, since the 20 watt is running cutting out ornaments, I'm going to be running the 10 watt to do the engraving on one of the ones that I've got to finish today. So I'm going to move the camera around where you can see what we're doing, and we're going to engrave a C, because it's my wife's, on this one, and then we're going to move forward and do the one for the catering company, which I've got to do an M on that one. So stick around. All right, guys, I'm over here at my XTool D1. This is my 10 watt. This is the machine that is now celebrating its 1 year anniversary here at the Clack Shack. All right, so I'm going to just kind of lay me out a little square right here. I'm going to set that square as a tool line, and I'm just going to frame and see how close I got using the camera to where the machine, where the board actually is. So I'm just putting me a frame line around the board to kind of lay out where it goes. I'm going to zoom that in and move it up just a little, because what I want to do is I'm using this frame line to get my design relative to where the board is. So I'm going to use this little square to lay out that frame and make sure I'm centered. So there we go. That looks good. So all right, so I've got that set up. I've got it ready to burn, and I'm going to turn my air assist on. This one's not on shop air, so I have to turn it on. And the reason I do that, guys, is just to keep the nozzle clean. Guinea has came to visit, if you can't tell. She's being noisy. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna set this burn to be pretty deep, because that is a piece of red oak, and it's not gonna burn real well. It's gonna want to be a little stubborn. So I'm gonna run this power up to the speed down to 70. So I've got my line speed set at 50, because I got a line that's going to be in there, and then it's going to go back and it's going to do the feel. I've got both of those set at 70. So 50 for the line, 70 for the feels, and that should do it. So here we go, guys. This is just my little sketch line. This is the 50 speed that I've got set up on there. And basically it's just going to do a quick outline of the design, and then it's going to go back and fill it in and put the lettering and everything in there. All right, this is the letter that it's putting on there now, and the power settings on that, it's going to be 70 millimeters per second at 100% output, and I'm running my ComGrow air assist at about 50% air. I don't want to run it too high. I want to run it just high enough to kind of help do a little bit better burn on this wood, because this wood is really hard. All right, guys, there it is, hot off the laser. That was a single pass. Like I said, I turned the settings down. I run the air assist to try to get that dark engrave on this red oak. Red oak is a very hard wood, and if you don't do the right combination of speed, power, and air, you won't get this beautiful black look like that. Now it's going to lose a little bit of it when I hit it with the air hose here in just a second, so I'm going to move over there and do that. All right, we got that one done, guys, and I went ahead and I hit it with the air hose, and that's the end result right there, guys. That is some wormy red oak. This piece of wood has got all kind of character and things. That's what I like to specialize in, guys. I'm not one of these, you know, Hobby Lobby, whatever. I want mine to be unique. I want it to have some character, and I want it to look good. But that one I did for the wife, guys. That was I got an executive order for this one. So she had stole it out of my stash when I came back from. She volunteered to help me unload my stuff at the last event. And then after we got everything unloaded and back out here in the shack, I went back in the house to get some tea and found this guy sitting on the counter. So technically, I guess she stole it, but it was half hers anyway. So, but I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna leave this one like this. She's not planning on cooking on it, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna treat it with some vegetable oil, with some mineral oil that is made to treat butcher blocks. And the only reason I'm doing that is just to keep it from fading and to give it a little bit more pop. And so I'm gonna take the little string handle here off of it, and we'll set it over on the table, and I'll show you what a difference just a little bit of mineral oil can make in these. She's got a little jug of it she keeps inside to treat her cutting boards with. And that's one thing that you do have to do, guys, is you have to keep these things clean if you're gonna actually be eating off of them. This one, she's not, so I'm not really worried about that. But you gotta keep them clean, and you can either use like a butcher's block wax or oil or something like that to try to keep any kind of bacteria or anything like that from growing on the wood itself, because it is wood. It's not a smooth surface. It does have pores. Things do get in pores, so that's going to be, you know, kind of critical. But as you can tell, no need for sanding or anything. I know all these guys that are anti-air assist on engraving, but you know, I'm not. So, but give me just a second. I'm going to move this over here to the table and we'll treat it right quick. Oh, one more thing while I'm thinking about it. We were talking about air assist and all that. That is my original D1 10 watt that I bought last year. And the air assist that is on that guy is the ComGrow. And that's how I'm able to turn it up to like 50% or whatever on the air assist and not run it all the way up all of the time. But look at that, guys. Look at that pop right there. Let me bring it up where you can see this. That's right. Just a little bit of oil. See, this is the difference, guys. That's there you go, right there. Mineral oil on the right, no mineral oil on the left, except for those little spots. So this stuff will soak into the wood and just kind of protect it, keep it from drying out. Gives it a little bit of color. And the cool thing about this stuff is if for some reason you do decide to eat off of it, it's not going to hurt you. It's mineral oil. It's made for butcher blocks. It's made for treating things that will have food on them. Now you still want to make sure you keep it clean and don't let bacteria grow on it, but this mineral oil itself is not going to hurt you. So I'm just going to wipe it down with a good layer. Look what some color. This was a dead standing red oak. It came from like halfway up the hill behind my house back here. Bugs were living in it and had carpenter ants in it. That's why you see that hole right there. That's actually a tunnel where the carpenter ants were going in and out of the tree. But the carpenter ants eventually killed the tree. Storm came, blew it over, and I collected the log, threw it on the mill, and wound up making this board out of it. So recycling, guys, recycling. All these folks talk about recycling. That's just actually recycling right there. But there we are, guys. That's it right there. Now, got my wife off my back, so we can go back to work now. But this is the food grade oil that I'm using on this. This is an Amazon purchase as well. I can drop a link down below. It's just made for cutting boards, and if you read right here, yeah, I'm loving the new camera. Maintain your wood cutting boards, butcher blocks, and countertops with 13 Chefs mineral oil. So it's food safe, USP grade white mineral oil, and then the rest of it's just a little thing about the FDA. All right, guys, up next, this is a piece of water oak. I went ahead and cheated while this one was engraving, and I walked over to the planer and I went ahead and planed it and made sure the edges were nice and smooth, and the top and all was nice and smooth. Got the board good and flat. A little history behind this tree. A couple of years ago, there was a tornado that hit just down the road from me, maybe like 2 miles up the road. And while responding to try to help some of my neighbors out, we had to cut a tree out of the road. It was a water oak tree. And so I cut me a path through it, went and helped the neighbors. And we got, you know, a couple of them lost their house and that kind of thing. But after it was over with, the county was kind of, you know, they were a little busy, had a lot of stuff going on. Power lines were still down. People were rebuilding their houses. And so they forgot about getting this log that was still at that time, like right there on the fog line on the highway. So I helped them out with that. It was about a 30-inch water oak. And so I grabbed my trailer and went down and got that guy out of the road for him. And that's where this came from. So this is actually a tornado. This board began its life as a result of a tornado. And nothing says Alabama more than a tornado. So what I'm going to do today, guys, is I'm going to show you the process that I go through. I'm going to take this board, I'm going to put it in the D1, and I'm going to use the laser to mark where I want to cut the charcuterie board and to draw the design. And then I'm going to tag team it with the bandsaw and the scroll saw to get it cut out into the appropriate shape. Then I'm going to do a little sanding, and then we're going to make this board into a charcuterie board. So let's move over to the XTool. All right, guys, I got the board inside the 10 watt now, and what I'm going to do now, I've got a shape. I've imported the shape into Lightburn, and I'm just going to frame it out and show you exactly where this shape is going to go. Usually what I do, guys, is I just try to make the shape fit the piece of wood that I have. And in this case, I loaded the image, stretched it using the camera, got it to where it covered the piece of wood that I had. And I've set that now to trace it out, and I've got it set to run at 50 speed, 100% output, and I'm going to do 2 passes. That'll give me a good solid line to look at when I'm working it on the saws. It's going to mark the hole as well. Usually I end up using a drill to do the holes, but now that I've got my scroll saw, I'm probably going to wind up using it, but who knows. This will actually be the first time I get to put my little scroll saw to work since getting it. I've been doing these with the bandsaw, and having the lid open is going to allow my smoke into the shop, but I guess we'll be okay. But instead of using 100% bandsaw now, I actually have the scroll saw, and that's going to make these turns a little bit easier to make, and also make my cuts a little smoother. I will be removing the bulk of the material using the bandsaw just to make it a little easier to work with. All right, so there's our outline, guys. All right, guys, this stage is going to be a little noisy, but I'm going to go ahead and video it. I'm going to be using the bandsaw to knock the bulk of this wood off of this piece. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my sawdust extraction kit on here and get to work on that. So the bandsaw is going to be a little noisy itself. All right, the next part of this, guys, is going to be to get the area that I couldn't get with the bandsaw, or didn't want to try to get. I want to go ahead and knock it off with the scroll. All right, guys, I had to do a little bit of modification to my scroll saw. Minor miscalculation when I was cutting this oak as to how much this thing was going to bounce around. So fixed my bouncing problem, I believe, and gonna get back to cutting. All right, guys, I'm a little rusty on the scroll saw. I actually haven't had one of those things since I lived at home back, you know, a long time ago, guys. So I'm gonna have to get used to that and get my skills back. But I managed to get the board cut out. It's a unique little design. I've still got to drill the hole here and hit it with a sander and sand it up. So that's where we're at now. All right, guys, I got the sanding done, and this is the final result. Got it as smooth as it needs to be. Got the edges rounded. My next investment is going to be a spindle sander, because getting in here is a pain without the right machine. So I am going to be putting that on my list of things I need for the shop. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to engrave this one. I've been told that this one is not going to be used for food, but I'm still going to treat it the same way I do the rest of them, just in case. I don't want to put anything poisonous on there, just in case somebody does decide to eat off of it. So we'll go ahead and lay that in there. I'm using the teeth on my squaring jig, my connecting panel there, to get the bottom edge of that thing square. And what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to open the file that I created earlier to do the one for my wife. I'm going to open that one, and I'll be using that for this burn. So I'm going to go ahead, and I've got this set to 50 speed on the line. Again, I've got it set to 70 and 100, 70 and 100. This is water oak, so it is also not going to burn really well, but with these settings I should get me a nice dark engrave. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that, get it started. Right now what it's doing is it penciling out that outline for me. And I'm going to move you over there where you can see what's going on. So there we go. Right now it's just basically penciling out the design, and then it's going to come back around. I didn't really try to center up and down, because the way this board is, the shape of it, I just felt like that. Looking at the camera, that looked like it was a good place to put it. All right, guys, other than the tool line that wasn't a tool line, that was actually a burn, that came out pretty well. Luckily, I didn't have that thing set to do 2 passes or set to do anything too hot, because I'm gonna have to sand that guy off of there. But yeah, that's what happens when you wear these glasses, guys. You can't tell what shade of blue or green or red or whatever you're messing with. So there's the end product. Like I said, I got that little faint line around it where my frame was, that I thought was a frame tool line, but it wasn't. So I got to go clean that up. All right, guys, there it is. Nothing but a little water oak and a little laser engraving. And now to put the final coat on there, which is going to be some mineral oil. Like I said, this one I was told will not be used for food products, but just as a precaution, this is what I'll be putting on it. And this will seal it, keep it from drying out, give it a little color, make it look cool. And in the event that it is used for food, it will still be food safe. So, and as you can tell by this gold color, this is oak. More specifically, this is water oak. And I told you the story behind it. This is a tornado tree. With some cool grain in that edge there. But this will keep it from drying out. Like I said, if they want to use it for food, they can. And this stuff makes it wood look good. It's authentic. There is no chemicals or anything like that. So I just like keeping it simple and keeping it versatile. That second coat of sanding, where I had to get those little lines off where I'd accidentally chose the wrong power setting, I went ahead and did that with my 120 grit. I usually do a 120 grit final run on these. That gets them slick enough for what they're going to be used for. So there it is, guys. All right, guys, that's that for tonight. I had a bunch of people messaging me, asking me about the charcuterie boards and how I go about doing them, and how I from start to stop. And so, you know, the easiest way for me to do it, guys, is just to do a video. And like I said, if you want to be able to make these and you want to use my technique, if you've got an XTool D1 and a bandsaw, jigsaw, scroll saw, whatever, there it goes. Now, I will say this. One of those spindle sanders is definitely on my list of things I need, because getting into these little curves right here on the sanding process, when you put these little hooks and stuff like that on the sanding, that kind of makes it a little hard. But there you go, guys. That's there's your charcuterie board. And this one is like going to be a display. This is not going to be necessarily eaten off of. I was told that this one didn't have to be food safe, that it's a gift and its purpose is to be decorative. So I think we got that. I think we got decorative gift. So anyway, guys, I appreciate your attention and appreciate you coming. Appreciate the support for the channel. If you haven't already, guys, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So I appreciate you. And if you want to get some of the mineral oil that I use on these, I'll drop a link in the description. I ordered it through Amazon. It's not all that expensive, and I've had that little jug there for several months now. I've done a bunch of these, and it lasts. And like I said, you can buy a lot of the same products at Home Depot and Lowe's and places like that. I think Walmart may even carry some over in the houseware section. But what I buy that from Amazon because it's just a little bit cheaper when you buy a bigger jug of it. So, but until next time, guys, have a good one. Take it easy and see ya.